So I've spent over a decade mastering my English writing skills, and I'm here to share with you some of the best writing tips that can turn you into an amazing writer who consistently delivers grade A assignments. Before we even get into the writing, I need to tell a little bit of a story. I used to always dive straight into writing and then try and figure it out as I went on, which was always a terrible idea that backfires. You have to connect these random points you came up with together, and it doesn't work out well. So you should try and prepare your content first. If you're writing for a teacher, you should try and ask them to clarify what they mean and what they want from you, and thoroughly read through their rubric or assignment or whatever they give you. So next, brain dump all of your ideas into a document or a notebook. And a little spoiler for what we cover later on, ChatGPT can be super helpful with this section. Choose a topic that you could turn into a persuasive essay or strong written piece, and then craft a solid outline of each and every one of your paragraphs, and make sure to nail in your thesis statement or topic sentence. Finally, make sure all your topics are connected and coherent before moving on to actually writing. With a coherent outline and a bunch of solid ideas swirling in your head, you should avoid the common mistake of assuming that your audience knows exactly what you do. Even skilled writers fall into this trap, and you should always keep one foot in your audience's shoes and monitor exactly what they know throughout your writing. Remember that you know your ideas better than anyone else, and your goal as a writer should be to try and make that gap of understanding as small as possible. You should also tailor your language to your audience and always favor simplicity over more complex language if you can, so that everyone can understand it. While adding a bunch of fluff can make hitting word counts a lot easier, strive to convey your point across as concisely as possible to improve both clarity and engagement. If you need to reach a word count, try and add more valuable information rather than stretching your existing sentences. Remember that teachers prefer good writing over hitting their specific set word count. As William Strunk Jr. put it, make every word tell. As a tip, avoid unnecessary qualifiers like really, very, basically, and use more potent alternatives. For example, replace he was extremely angry with he was infuriated. In addition, cut down on prepositional phrases and fancy phrases that are pretty unnecessary. For example, in order to conquer the mountain, he first had to buy hiking gear becomes, to conquer the mountain, he first had to buy hiking gear. And considering the fact that schools are built to help teach the next generation, it makes sense that they typically have large libraries. Simplifies to, since schools educate the youth, they typically have large libraries. Another powerful writing tip that also happens to improve conciseness is defaulting to the active voice. When writing in active voice, focus on the subject performing the action rather than the thing receiving the action. For instance, compare the passive sentence, the book was written by her in a mere week, to the active sentence, she wrote the book in a mere week. The active voice delivers a more forceful and concise message. Let's turn a few more passive sentences into active ones. For example, he was mauled by the lion becomes, the lion mauled him. And for its simple and delicious flavors, sushi has always been loved by me, transforms into, for its simple and delicious flavors, I've always loved sushi. You should never leave your readers guessing what you meant. Write with specific and concrete language to ensure that your messages always hit home. For instance, with this sentence I just wrote, instead of using the vague term this, use the country's name, such as cargo. Avoid ambiguous phrases like countless dangers and great cruelties whenever possible. Show rather than tell, offering examples to illustrate your points vividly. For example, in cargo, people always carried handguns to protect their purses from burglars and children from kidnappers. This gives the readers a more clear picture of the risks that people face. The two best ways to leverage ChatGPT for writing are to generate ideas in broad outlines and to edit and refine your essays. Imagine your writing process as an AI sandwich, starting and ending with ChatGPT assistance. Think of ChatGPT as your personal writing assistant, helping you to create better and faster work. However, avoid relying on ChatGPT to do the actual writing. It usually produces a bunch of fluff disguised in pretty language and doesn't really make much good content by itself. Here are some easy prompts, starting with brainstorming. Brainstorm ideas for X topic. Afterwards, you can ask, create a broad outline for an essay/persuasive speech/short story on X topic above. And For editing, you can ask, give me general suggestions to improve this paragraph. And if you know the specific changes you want fixed, like if your paragraph is too complex and repetitive, you can say, edit this paragraph to reduce redundancy and simplify vocabulary. But treat ChatGPT's edits as valuable suggestions and not just absolute facts. Let's quickly break down the structure of a well-organized essay. Begin with the introduction, where you hook your readers, then go through all of the topics and points you're going to mention, and then end with your thesis statement. Then move on to your body paragraphs, which is usually around 3, and each should be dedicated to exploring only a single idea. You should never have more than one topic per paragraph. Finally, you should wrap it all up with a good conclusion. Your conclusion should summarize your points, and then you should add one extra takeaway so you're fresh and not just too repetitive. Teachers usually have a bunch of papers to grade, so while we like to think that they'll thoroughly read every bit of your writing, they'll most likely skim through some of it. We can use this to get better grades though, by making our introduction, first body paragraph, and conclusion as shiny and polished as possible. We can make our essay seem even better than it already is. Proofreading is kind of like flossing. It's one of those things that everybody knows is important, but is kind of skipped out a lot of the times, but you should do it. So when proofreading, I go through it at least a few times to check for grammar, and then the tips we mentioned above, like being concise, using active voice, and being specific. Also, when proofreading, you should go through as a reader who knows nothing about what you're talking about, so that you can catch points where you might be confusing your audience. Finally, you should always have at least like one out loud read through to catch any clunky or weird sentences. So I've learned a lot of things from the book, The Elements of Style, which I have its workbook right here. I'd highly recommend it, and a lot of the tips from this video were inspired by the book. If you also want a step-by-step writing walkthrough you can follow to make and refine any school essay or writing piece, you have access to one in the description as my little bonus for watching the entire video. Thanks, bye.